Good morning. In securing our border with Mexico over the past decade, Texas has invested hundreds of millions of dollars, countless man-hours, filling a role that's been largely abdicated by Washington. We've done this because it is our responsibility to protect the lives and the property of Texans from criminal activity that is enabled by the lax border security. That's why when faced with a flood of illegal immigration last summer that left the hardworking men and women of the Border Patrol overwhelmed and unprepared, we initiated a surge of our DPS personnel, including the Texas Ranger Recon teams, our Parks and Wildlife wardens. And then I ordered the deployment of up to 1,000 Texas National Guardsmen to bolster our law enforcement presence. Those operations have played a pivotal role in capturing and deterring those who exploit the insufficient federal border security to commit illegal and evil acts, particularly those involving drug and human smuggling. Director McGraw is here today, and you will hear from him shortly as he outlines the results that we've seen thus far in the operation. As many of you know, the Legislative Budget Board voted unanimously Monday to continue funding our enhanced law enforcement presence in the border region through October the 31st of next year. That'll give the next legislature and governor time to determine how best to continue protecting Texas. This law enforcement presence is all the more necessary as the federal government continues to ignore the very real issue of border security. The drug cartels, the human trafficking, the murders, and the other crimes, in favor of this political posturing on the important issue of immigration. As I've reiterated over the years, without border security, immigration reform is a fruitless exercise. Case in point, last summer's flood of illegal border crossings was driven in large measure by President Obama's program that grants lawful presence in those who have entered the U.S. illegally. As the President promoted his version of immigration reform in 2011, and he used his executive authority to enact deferred action for childhood arrivals in 2012, illegal immigration by unaccompanied minors from Central America skyrocketed. In effect, his action placed a neon sign on our border, assuring people that they could ignore the law of the United States, enter this nation, and the President unilaterally allowing them to stay. What's really worth remembering is that last month, when the President announced orders to efficiently grant amnesty to millions of people in the United States illegally, if his first policy opened up the floodgates, there's no telling how much damage is going to be done by this executive action that he's taken now, particularly to border states. Texas has time and time again prepared for the worst, and we prayed for the best. As we saw this summer, the potential for mass migration scenario is one that our state and our nation cannot be unprepared for. As I said, in a few moments, Director McGraw is going to discuss our contingency plans for dealing with mass migration of individuals. It's my hope that Texas will never have to execute this plan, but the President's actions are making such scenarios more likely than ever before. It's clear that what we now need, more than ever, is for the U.S. Congress to finally pass a bill that dedicates the necessary resources to secure our border once and for all. Human traffickers, criminal elements on both sides of the border thrive on uncertainty. And President Obama's actions will create nothing but more chaos for these individuals to exploit. We need to speak with one voice and make it clear that there is only one way to enter the United States, and that's through a fair, legal, and efficient process fortified by a border that is truly secured. However, until Congress acts, we must continue to use every tool at our disposal to ensure our laws are being enforced. That's why today I have issued an executive order requiring all state agencies under the direction of my office to utilize E-Verify to check employment status of current and prospective employees. We already have 17 agencies that use E-Verify, and this order seeks to bring these agencies in line with the program. More importantly, this means anyone who is seeking a contract with these agencies must also use E-Verify to determine the work eligibility of not only their employees, but also their subcontractors. The E-Verify system has been improved, it's been streamlined, and is currently the most accurate and efficient way to check a person's legal work in the United States. Once again, though any steps taken at the state level must be backed up by real federal commitment to fixing a broken system. Congress needs to act decisively, and they need to act quickly. I want to ask Steve McGraw to just share with us what that they are seeing on the border and some of the results of what our engagement along the border with Mexico has produced over the course of the last 4 or 5 months. Director?
Thank you, Governor. Thank you. As you mentioned, an unsecure border with Texas and Mexico, has consequences. One of the consequences, and probably the most insidious consequence, is the proliferation of organized crime throughout the state, and nation for that matter. And we've seen human trafficking in terms of even down to the sex trafficking, international sex trafficking of children. So there are consequences in our communities. Mexican cartels and transnational gangs use our state as a transshipment center for people who they treat as a commodity, and also drugs, cocaine, methamphetamine, marijuana, and heroin. They're the second leading nation in terms of production of heroin at this point in time. They also commit a variety of heinous crimes in Texas, including homicides and contract killings, sexual assaults, kidnappings, and extortions. We also know that these same vile criminals are using terror tactics in Mexico, murdering Mexican police, military officials, priests, politicians, journalists, and tens of thousands of Mexican citizens, torturing or decapitating them and their victims, all to instill terror in their victims. These ruthless and relentless enemies are threats to the national security of our nation, and certainly to the domestic security of Mexico. Time again, the state of Texas has proven that when we boost our patrol capabilities and coordinate around the clock marine, air, and ground operations with our local law enforcement partners, our state law enforcement partners, our federal law enforcement partners, in particular, the brave men and women of the Border Patrol, we substantially obstruct the Mexican cartel's ability to operate. It's difficult for them to move. They're motivated by profit. And when you're in their way, it shuts them down. And keep in mind, human trafficking and human smuggling is very profitable for the Mexican cartels, highly profitable. Now, since being directed by you, Governor, and the state leadership to conduct 24/7 saturation patrols in the Rio Grande Valley, an effort dubbed Operation Strong Safety, our coordinated air, water, and ground patrols with our local, state, and federal partners have significantly curtailed the ability of criminal organizations to smuggle drugs and humans across the border. Operation Strong Safety is having a clear impact, including a deterrent effect on border crossings, with illegal alien apprehensions declining dramatically in the area of operation since the start of the operation. I mean, it's important to note in 2011 is dramatically increased. We saw 112,000 apprehensions in 2011 across Texas borders. It increased, to 166 by 446%. The following year was 2012, and of course another 48% up to 242,000 in 2013. Right now, calendar year, in terms of Texas, 2014 calendar year, across our border, there's been 294,000 apprehensions across our borders. In the area of operation, week 1, there was 6,606 apprehensions. In week 11, those apprehensions decreased down to under 2,000 and remained that way until week 22. Last week it was 1,791. And the reason that happened is not because we were doing less, we were actually doing more. Our detection posture, our interdiction posture was vastly increased with the resources provided. And yet the numbers dropped. Again, it's a business of profit. As you mentioned, Governor, the state's mass migration contingency plan has been updated in the event of a substantial wave of individuals pour across the Texas-Mexico border. We have no specific or credible information that that's going to happen anytime soon. But as the Governor noted, we've got to be prepared. And there's even, you know, for a number of reasons that you have to be prepared for this. And we saw what happens when you're not prepared for it with just children come across. And now, following the direction of you, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, and Speaker of the House, the Texas Department of Public Safety will continue to work alongside the Texas Military Forces, Texas Parks and Wildlife, or game wardens, and local, state, and federal partners through August 2015 in an effort to combating Mexican cartels and other criminal activities in the border region through Operation Strong Safety. Moreover, as the public safety threats evolve and the criminal operatives adjust, I can assure you that we will continue to adjust and match it. Now, this is an enemy that sent thousands of scouts at us and covered, you know, for our troopers, our agents, and our Texas Rangers. They've got lots of money, a lot of resources, and they've dedicated to it. This money that's been provided that will enable us to leverage technology, including 4,000 cameras through Operation Drawbridge. You see a couple of photographs right here. The bottom line is that you can secure the border, but you got two things that have to happen. One, you have to have a detection posture that's capable of identifying every smuggling event between the ports of entry, and we have to match it with an interdiction rate that's supported by resources on the water, in the air, and certainly interdiction teams on the ground. And so this, what we're talking about right now with these additional funds, we're moving from a reactive strategy that's built on deterrence that results in interdictions. We're moving towards an interdiction strategy that's proactive that results in deterrences. Texans have a right to live in their communities free from harm and fear of danger from the Mexican cartels, violent gangs, and other threats directly related to an unsecured border with Mexico. And Texans will not tolerate the proliferation of organized crime throughout the state. And with it, ton quantities of cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, and marijuana, and the sex trafficking of young women and children. We'll continue working with our local and state federal partners to carry out our mission in protecting and serving the people of Texas. Thank you, Governor.